The GPT-5 controversy continues, with some asking seriously, is this really a step forward or just a way to cut costs? Perplexity makes a $34.5 billion bid for Google Chrome, and fusion power, the holy grail of energy, just got a lot closer. Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. It was certainly hyped like mad before it launched, and Sam Altman was saying it made him feel useless and drawing parallels to the Manhattan Project. Well, the only parallel to the Manhattan Project seems to be GPT-5 might be bombing. The demos looked impressive, and it was rolled out across the world, and that's where the trouble started. There was a glitch on day one that left the model way dumber than intended, according to Sam Altman himself, but users noticed as well. In fact, a lot of users were asking why they couldn't go back to the old 4.0 model. That led to some speculation. There was an article in the Register that said maybe GPT-5 isn't about it getting smarter. Maybe it's about cutting OpenAI's massive compute bills. Now, I don't think OpenAI disguised the fact that they were looking for some efficiency. ChatGPT routes its prompts to different GPT variants. There's a reasoning mode, non-reasoning mode, plus a separate image model, and the lighter tasks avoid the heavy thinking. That saves GPU time, tokens, and energy. That's the automatic switching that they had. Under the hood, GPT-5 is using something they call MXFP4. It's a 4.25-bit floating point format from the Open Compute project. This claims to cut memory bandwidth needs by up to 75% compared to earlier models. And there's certainly a reason why they need to be able to have more compute. For one thing, the company's very generous with what it gives to free users. They get all the features. There are some restrictions, and that's necessary, but still, the compute pressures on OpenAI must be extraordinary. By August 4th, ChatGPT had roughly 700 million weekly active users. That's up from 500 million in March. So that growth alone is going to be incredible. Revenue has doubled year over year to about $12 billion annually, but that's coming from about 10 million paid users and 5 million business users. The rest of those users are all free. And that's unlikely to change. The company's strategy is clearly take as much market share as it can. It's driven by what's called Metcalfe's law, which roughly says the biggest player wins. And we've seen this. Facebook and Meta dominate social media. Google dominates search. OpenAI clearly wants to be in that position in the new world of AI. There are even rumors that OpenAI is thinking of low-cost models to try to win market share in places like India and other countries, charging as little as $5 a month. But even if you think that OpenAI can tap into infinite investment, even if they have the money, scaling this quickly and building enough compute to keep up with this growth and with the intensity of the new models, because these new models, when they start to do the thinking, take an enormous amount of resources. This is no easy feat. So the idea that GPT-5 may be more about efficiency than a real breakthrough isn't a conspiracy theory. It's got some credibility. But there are some measurable improvements in GPT-5 that do point to some real breakthroughs. Real-world coding, the SWE benchmark. OpenAI reports 74.9% for GPT-5 versus 69.1% for its prior O3 model. Anthropic is getting about 74.5% on the same benchmark with their Claude Opus 4.1, and they're leaders in coding. Google is coming on strong with 63.8% for Gemini 2.5 Pro. So GPT-5 is at or is tied for state-of-the-art coding, with Claude and GPT-5 essentially neck and neck, and Gemini is trailing, but it's still doing well. On math, the AIM 2025 tests, OpenAI posted a 94.6% without tools. That's a clear gain over its older models. And you might be aware that OpenAI and Gemini both won gold medals recently in math contests. In health and medical reasoning, one of the things that Sam Altman featured in the demo, GPT-5 thinking scores 46.2% versus 31.6% for O3 and a no score for GPT-4o's fast mode. These aren't benchmarks, but OpenAI claims these are audited, physician-validated internal tests and that they're documented. In terms of hallucinations, one of the real problems with generative AI systems, OpenAI is reporting 26% fewer hallucinations versus GPT-4o, 65% fewer versus O3 for the thinking model. This kind of reliability is a huge move forward. So why do so many feel that we've taken a step backward? Was it just those initial glitches? Maybe not. PC Gamer tore into OpenAI's initial charts for being misleadingly drawn. The numbers were fine, the bars weren't. OpenAI had to restore GPT-4 as an option for paying users after a backlash about tone and feel. And some users, myself included, after several days of working with it, find GPT-5 highly inconsistent. It might be more accurate, but it's certainly not more articulate. At times, it's clear and sharp. At other times, it feels like the worst of the earlier models. And it might just be that I give it difficult questions, but it appears to me to be much, much slower. I've started to wonder what questions it can answer quickly. Curiously, though, none of this seems to have transferred over to the speech-driven app on my phone. But doing anything of complexity with GPT-5 on the desktop is slow and painful. And as I said, the results are really uneven. I'm not regretting the fact that I pay for other models as well. Growing pains? Perhaps. I was prepared to cut them some slack on this, and I still am. I don't want to get too far ahead of it. We need to wait and see, but watch it carefully. Let's just say that the next time you compare this to the Manhattan Project, I hope it isn't because it bombed. We'll be watching. Perplexity has made a bold and unsolicited $34.5 billion all-cash bid to buy Google's Chrome browser. Why is this so bold? Well, it's more than twice what Perplexity itself is worth. The term sheet reviewed by Reuters, Perplexity promises to keep Chromium open source, invest about $3 billion US over 2 years, and leave Google as the default search engine. Perplexity said outside funds would bankroll the deal. Why make this bid now? Well, a U.S. judge is due to rule on antitrust remedies in the Google search case this month. Some rivals say Chrome could fetch as much as $50 billion US if a sale were ordered. But legal scholars think a forced divestiture is unlikely and could drag on for years. Still, Perplexity was last valued at $14 billion to $18 billion US and is reportedly exploring funding at about $20 billion US, so this offer is a big stretch. But the opportunity is obvious. Chrome reaches 3 billion plus users worldwide, and Perplexity already has its own AI browser, a Chromium browser, Comet. Even if Google search stays the default, owning the browser could let Perplexity layer on things like AI assistance, shopping, and workflow features on top of everyday browsing. The question is, can they make enough money from that to pay back the cost of buying Chrome? And the risks are huge. While we can understand the search and click model of advertising that's driven Chrome and Google to great heights in terms of revenue, the new rules of what's happening with AI are still being written. In terms of the boldness of it, it's a headline-grabbing bid, but it's still a real strategic bet. If the regulators crack open Chrome, Perplexity wants in. It's both a headline-grabbing bid and a real strategic bet. And if the regulators demand that Chrome must be sold, Perplexity wants to position itself as the leading candidate to buy it. Now, while AI has been grabbing all the oxygen in the room, some technologies we once thought were decades away are quietly breaking barriers. We've been following some quantum computing developments over the past few weeks, and we'll be covering more of that as we go forward. But lurking in the background is fusion power. And this week, I caught a couple of articles that really demonstrated fusion may be more practical than we think. On January 20th in Hefei, China, the East Tokamak, known as the artificial sun, kept a fusion plasma reaction alive and stable for 1,066 seconds. That's 17 minutes and 40 seconds at roughly 70 million degrees Celsius. That's hotter than the sun's core. It was at the time the longest steady-state, high-confinement plasma ever held. And then, 3 weeks later, in Cadarache, France, the West Tokamak beat the fresh Chinese record, sustaining the plasma reaction for 1,337 seconds. That's over 22 minutes of continuous reaction. And it's proof now that these long-duration regimes can be achieved on different machines. You might remember that it was just in 2022 that the U.S. National Ignition Facility made history, producing more fusion energy than the lasers delivered to the target. That was just a few seconds, and it was what was called inertial confinement, a laser-driven heartbeat. The new East and West tokamaks are magnetic confinement, and the duration and controls are huge milestones. So, we're not generating electricity yet, but with both the work in China and in France, fusion's future feels a lot less like science fiction than it did as much as a year or two ago. And that's our show. If you like what we're doing, please share the show with others. Give us a like or comment on your favorite podcast app or site. We are found everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. And we're back on your Alexa speakers, and we hope to get back on Google Smart Speakers soon. Fingers crossed. We love to hear from you. You can reach me at technewsday.ca or .com. Just go to the Contact Us page. And while you're there, if you'd like to support what we're doing, go to the Donate tab and consider contributing the cost of a cup of coffee a month to support the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just leave a comment under the video. But your contributions would be gratefully accepted as well. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a thrilling Thursday.